their businesses, hinting at plans to protect their businesses whenever protests are announced. Here's David Kagina with the details.
Unlike previous protests organized by Gen Z youths, which were characterized by a cat-and-mouse game between police and protesters, with some even accusing the police of excessive force, the protests have recently taken a new turn, marked by destruction of property, looting and violence. Those most affected being those who never participated in the protests.
Ukifika kwa barabara unakutana na hawa goons, wanakunyang'anya bodaboda na wanakunyang'anya mpaka parcel ya customer wako.
According to the Nairobi business community, the attack on the businesses are being carried out by paid goons.
It was a very well orchestrated move. We don't take it lightly. We don't take it kindly. We have now come back to where we were when demonstrations were misused.
Some people wanateka advantage, wanakuja kutuibia, unafanya sisi tunarudi nyuma. So kwa hii nini maandamano waizi wengi ndio wako ndani sai.
Because I don't understand how you can tell me my son who is a Gen Z can think of bringing coffins in town.
Despite refusing to name those paying the thugs, they maintain that it is someone with the intention of crippling their businesses and that they know who he is.
Tumejua ya kwamba kuna mzee mmoja ambaye anakalia kiti hapa Nairobi. Na huyu mzee ni kama ako na grudge na watu fulani. Anaenda analipa goons, wamekuja kuingilia mgomo peaceful ya watoto wetu. Akaleta goons wakaanza kuharibu biashara za watu.
They have also blamed police for hesitating to take strong action against the thugs even when committing the crimes in broad daylight.
They did their work, but in a manner that showed they knew there were some people, elements who were not good.
Inafaa waangalie juu kama polisi waliambiwa pale kwangu kuna vunjwa, wakasema wakarusha mikono na kuenda. Sasa wanatulinda nini? Hakuna kitu wanafanya.
Naivas 3 hours, masaa matatu imeporwa, kila kitu ikaenda. Hakuna polisi alitokea, hakuna polisi alionekana, but walionekana wakipiga risasi huko.
In Mombasa County, businesses are also estimating losses and pressure is mounting for the youth to stop the protests following the use of demos by thugs to commit crimes. Yesterday, 5 vehicles were burned down and property looted in different business areas.
There is something fishy kati yale yalitokea jana. Si wale waandamanaji.
Angalia hapa unaona pamevunjwa na hii si maandamano tena. Hii sasa ni uuni ndio inaendelea.
Aibu kubwa kumwona governor ni supervisor wa maandamano. This is shame on him.
According to the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, export trade has decreased by 17%, while the Nairobi Stock Exchange has lost 63 billion shillings in the 2 weeks of protests. KNCCI is further expressing fears that investors are losing confidence in the country's economy due to the protests.
We are not going to allow people or groups organized to come and joke with our businesses. We are now out again to protect our interest and the interest of our stakeholders. We cannot see young men fighting corruption and then we see some other groups coming to kill our economy.
David Kagina, K24, Nairobi.
ODM leader Raila Odinga has now called on law enforcers to move with speed and arrest goons masquerading as Gen Z protesters. In a statement Wednesday, the former Prime Minister noted that chaos witnessed had been sponsored and different from what has been witnessed since the Gen Z took to the streets. And as Brian Amoy now reports, the Azimio coalition has further accused the state of hiring the goons to cause mayhem, calling on President William Ruto to resign.
For 3 weeks in a row, the country has been rocked by protests, with Kenyans expressing their dissatisfaction with the Kenya Kwanza government. Protests that initially were peaceful turned chaotic in the past few weeks, leading to loss of lives and property as goons masquerading as protesters descended on private property. The coalition principal, Raila Odinga, has moved in to castigate thugs who infiltrated the protest. In a statement, Raila Odinga said, for thugs to hijack the protest and turn them into mayhem against innocent Kenyans amounts to a double betrayal of the youth. The bad manners have to be stopped. The opposition coalition, led by Kalonzo Musyoka, now says that the chaos witnessed during protests was sponsored by the state.
We have observed that the intention of yesterday's well-organized, coordinated and state-sponsored chaos was to undermine and denigrate the Gen Z-inspired nationwide non-violent protests. Looting was intentional. The destruction was planned. The torching of public and private property worth billions of shillings was carried out in collaboration with the already corrupted security forces in the full glare of the media and indeed the international media as well.
The coalition is accusing the president of having ulterior motives owing to his alleged involvement in the chaos witnessed.
Many questions that Gen Z, Azimio and the world have, the two most significant of which are, why is Ruto, through his henchmen and thugs, hiring goons to destabilize constitutionally protected protests, causing chaos and mayhem? Is the goal to declare a state of emergency and suspend the constitution?
The use of force by police officers has also been a subject of debate, with the coalition calling for restraint. Azimio also wants the enactment of the IEBC Amendment Bill 2024 to be expedited and signed into law to enable members of the public to move with speed in taking action against their elected representatives who went against the public's wishes and voted for the Finance Bill 2024.
We are aware that this bill has been sitting on Ruto's desk for days now, and the Kenya Kwanza dictatorship is reluctant to sign it into law. As a coalition, we call out to Ruto and demand that he assent to this essential bill that allows citizens to hold their representatives in the legislature accountable.
Azimio insists that enactment of the bill will enable the nation to have a snap election since they are tired of the ruling government.
Finally, it is time for Ruto to take responsibility for all his actions. He has blood on his hands and he should go to allow for a smooth transition of power.
On the increase of salaries for members of parliament, the coalition says it is a ploy to divert the nation's attention from the real issues as they called on their MPs to reject the salary increment. Brian Amuai, K24, Nairobi.
The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has made an about-turn and frozen the review of the salary of all state officers. Commission Chairperson Lynn Mengich says that this follows consultation with the National Treasury. Mengich has further attributed the about-turn to the recent budget cuts and the ongoing conversation in the country on austerity measures. Here is Majibu Kitao with the details.
The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has bowed to public pressure and frozen salary increases for all state officers. SRC Chairperson Lynn Mengich says the decision is meant to ensure fiscal sustainability.
This review came after a 2-year freeze on pay structures for the period 2021-22 financial year and 2022-2023 financial year on account of the impact of COVID-19 on the economy.
While responding to critics, including members of parliament who expressed disinterest in the salary hike, Mengich said the salary increases were not newly gazetted, saying they were published in August last year and would be implemented over a 2-year period.
SRC takes this early opportunity to clarify that the salary increases for state officers has not been newly gazetted as referenced in the media. SRC set and published a gazette notice on 9th August 2023 as part of the third remuneration and benefits review cycle for state officers and other public officers.
As the commission mandated to undertake the reviews, Mengich said they also welcome the support from all quarters to join efforts towards the goal of achieving the 35% wage bill to revenue ratio.
Therefore, in consultation with the National Treasury, SRC hereby freezes the upward review of salaries for all state officers and will review the advice for all other officers, taking into account the current realities of the economy, taking into account any contractual commitments and reduced budget so as to ensure affordability and fiscal sustainability of the public wage bill.
This comes even as the Judicial Service Commission suspended all recruitments, including the planned listing of additional Court of Appeal judges over government-wide budget cuts. Chief Justice Martha Koome says the decision is part of measures put in place to implement the directive by the Treasury to cut down on expenditure by at least 15% in the appropriated budget. Majibu Kitsao for K24 TV.
And amid escalating nationwide protests claiming over 39 lives, the Senate yesterday issued an ultimatum to the government demanding immediate action to pacify a country in turmoil. Led by Majority Leader Aaron Cheriot, the Senate's bold move challenges key institutions to confront grievances fueling public outrage in the country. Busara Naaman tells us more.
Senators led by Majority Leader Aaron Cheriot have rejected the proposed salary increment from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, citing that the leaders' earnings must also reflect the current state of the economy.
We understand things are tight. It's the most obvious thing that people do. Young people are telling us when you have a job with Safaricom, you can live in Langata. But the day you lose that job, you move downwards.
While making his address at the Senate, Cheriot questioned why the SRC has remained silent during the anti-government protests instead of forwarding solutions that will resolve the country's economic woes. He added that public officers, including the members of parliament, have no option but to take pay cuts to reduce the ballooning wage bill.
So that we reduce our public expenditure on wages and salaries from 46% to the mandatory 35%, Mr. Speaker. If it means taking a pay cut.
On his part, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna noted that there are many ways that Parliament can lead by example by reducing unnecessary allocations to demonstrate that they mean their words.
We have estimated, Honorable Speaker, at least those of us on the minority side, that we can do away with at least 1 trillion shillings in this budget. And we don't need to punish anyone. We just need to cut on expenditure in our own institutions. There are some offices that have been created that we do not even understand the basis of their existence. Look at the number of advisors in government. There needs to be a public audit of all these advisors. There was another office that was created, and this one you'll forgive me, Majority Leader, of faith intercessors. We need a public audit of who are these people and why are they earning public money.
And in bid to reduce the ballooning wage bill, the senators called for an overhaul of the cabinet and the disbandment of government entities like ESCC, NCSC, ODPP and the Office of the Spouses of Different Leaders.
NCIC should be disbanded with immediate effect, Mr. Speaker.
How can a body that reviews my salary once a year be working from Monday to Friday? This body called, how? How?
And they are unconstitutional. First ladies, second ladies, prime cabinet secretary's wife. We all have wives, and we were elected. If you are elected and you are earning a salary, let your wife use your salary to do the things he's doing.
Some senators also called for the resignation of the Inspector General of Police following the deaths that were witnessed during the anti-finance bill protests.
The IG should be removed from office. What has Parliament done?
Members of Parliament were also called upon to reconvene to deal with the escalating nationwide protests. The nation now watches with bated breath as the Senate's ultimatum sets the stage for potential resolution or further escalation in the ongoing crisis. Busara Naman, K24 TV.
Elsewhere, 24 protesters have been admitted at the Kitengela Sub-County Hospital after sustaining gunshot injuries during Tuesday's protests in the area. Some patients who had bullets lodged in their head were referred to the Kenyatta National Hospital and the Machakos Level 5 Hospital for further treatment. This comes despite promises that by President William Ruto that police would not use excessive force on demonstrators.
Despite a court ruling against the use of excessive force by the police on peaceful protesters, several people are in hospitals nursing gunshot wounds from Tuesday's demonstrations. In Kitengela alone, over 24 individuals are victims of bullets fired by the police during the demos. 14 other people sustained soft tissue injuries.
We received yesterday a total of about 38 clients who had some gunshot wounds. These clients, there are some who had some soft tissue injury and some had some gunshot bullet wounds. We had a total of 38 clients. So we referred a total of 1 to KNH. We referred also a total of 2 to Machakos level 5 since we didn't have a neuro surgeon. We also had a number of 5 who were attended yesterday and were taken to theatre. So currently there are some who are still waiting to be attended to go to theatre for the removal of dislodged bullets in their bodies.
The protesters faulted goons for infiltrating the demos, leading to chaos which resulted into the use of excessive force by the police.
Tulikuwa pale tumeandamana, kibahati mbaya huyo askari akapiga risasi kanipata mguu, kajipata hosi.
Elsewhere in Mombasa, a family is demanding for justice after their son was shot dead by the police during protests on Tuesday last week.
Kuja leo upasuaji wa mtoto wangu Choasi Ombati, na nimeona nimepata ukweli. Mtoto wangu aliuliwa kwa kupigwa risasi la nyuma na likatembea mpaka kwa mwili mpaka likapatikana karibu na kifua, na kuna bibi na watoto wawili. Sasa bado ni wadogo. Kwa hiyo wameniachia sida. Sijui jinsi ya kuwalisha watoto mpaka wakue.
This comes amidst arraignments by the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions against protesters who allegedly injured a rapid deployment unit officer on July 2nd. Over 185 protesters are also in police custody, pending investigations.
They turned chaotic and demonstrated on acts of hooliganism. Which occasioned one police officer, Philip Avutanga Asaya, from Rapid Deployment Unit to sustain a bullet wound.
Anthony Kwemoi, K24 TV.
The church has been called upon by a section of legislators to show support to the Gen Z-led demonstrations that are calling for change in leadership in government. The leaders have expressed concern over the government's failure to fulfill its promises to Kenyans, instead implementing measures that exacerbate the hardships faced by citizens. Here's Ben Kirira with the details.
The Gen Z-led demonstrations are gaining significant support. During a requiem mass for the late Maina Wanjigi at All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi, several legislators voiced their support for the Gen Z demonstrations, calling for a change in government leadership.
God is great all the time. He gave us a constitutional moment in 2010. God has given us another moment to resolve issues about Kenya.
The leaders today, we must ask ourselves, are we for our own interests or are we for the people?
We must get it right this time. So we'll be pretending, even as we escort Mzee Maina Wanjigi, that all is well in our country. It is not.
Siaya Governor James Orengo highlighted the urgent need for the church to address the state of the nation promptly.
You must be on the front line and be part of the solution. Otherwise, the church will become part of the problem.
Why are we being awakened by the Gen Zs? What are they seeing? What have we done? Most of us here were in that government of President Mwai Kibaki, and we worked so well.
These sentiments were echoed by NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua in her support for the Gen Z's call for change, saying the welfare of Kenyans has been ignored by the government.
We have a crisis of leadership where those in positions of power and influence are holding those positions, pursuing self-interest.
Isn't this the time that we all supported the Gen Zs, showed them the way so that we can have a Kenya that everybody can live and live happily?
In the meantime, remembered him as a truthful and honest legislator, setting an example for current and future leaders to follow.
Kenyatta appointed him to oversee the Million Acre Scheme as Director of Settlement.
It was a period when his integrity and quest for justice were put to the test. He passed the test.
Ben Kirera, K24, Nairobi.
The Ministry of Roads and Transport is set to kick off a public participation exercise starting next week, Monday, on the proposed amendment to the Road Maintenance Levy Order of 2016. The proposal seeks to increase the levy on petrol and diesel products by 7 shillings per litre. The move is, however, set to face headwinds following the withdrawal of the finance bill on which the proposal was anchored on. Here's Bentura Kwamboka with the details.
Kenyans are set to incur more cost at the fuel pump if an amendment that seeks to increase the road maintenance levy by 6 shillings per litre sails through. In a public participation exercise set to kick off this coming Monday on the proposed amendment of the Road Maintenance Levy Imposition Levy Order 2016, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen suggests an increase in the fuel levy charge from 18 shillings to 25 shillings per litre of petrol and diesel. Currently, petrol and diesel retails at 192.84 shillings for super petrol and 179.18 shillings for diesel in Nairobi and 189.66 shillings for petrol and 176.01 shillings for diesel in Mombasa. The public participation forums are expected to take place in select towns and regions including Nakuru, Isiolo, Eldoret, Mombasa, Garissa, Nyeri, Kisumu, Machakos and Nairobi counties. However, being anchored under the now withdrawn Finance Bill 2024, public participation cannot proceed.
The intention was to anchor it on the finance bill. Now there is no finance bill to anchor it on, So it loses the foot it was standing on. The intention was to raise money for the finance bill through executing the levy. But now this levy that is being collected, what is the purpose? That will be the question. So they can't use the finance bill, and as such, they can't use public participation. But like I've told you, they're trying to come up with some amendment to sponsor some act. We're waiting to see whatever it has to do. But as of now, we can't have participation on something that is already suspended.
The road maintenance levy is a tax charged at the pump and is used to provide funds for the operation and maintenance of road networks across the country. In 2023, the Kenya Roads Board proposed an increase of the maintenance levy by 5 shillings that was supposed to be effected from 2025. That would have led to an increase in a litre of petrol and diesel from 18 shillings to 23 shillings per litre. Bentura Kwamboka, K24 TV.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has pleaded with youthful protesters to call off demonstrations as the government has already indicated its commitment in putting up mechanisms to address their grievances. The DP says peaceful Gen Z demonstrations have been infiltrated by goons looting and vandalizing people's property. And as our reporter Electin Odera now tells us, it remains unclear if Gen Zs will take part in planned demos today.
What started as a common mission in pushing their agenda to have government listen to their demands is seemingly and slowly reversing their gains. Goons have now infiltrated the peaceful demos organized by the Gen Zs, with looting and wanton destruction of property becoming a norm. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has now waded into the conversation, urging the Gen Zs to call off the demos as the government is willing to listen to their demands.
What you started as peaceful protests, unfortunately, have been infiltrated and hijacked by criminals with criminal intent, who are now engaged in looting and creating mayhem.
Speaking in Laikipia during the burial of his elder sister, Leah Wangari Muriuki, the second in command said it is painful to look at the gains Kenya has made being reversed.
The young generation, Gen Z, as your father, my sons and daughters, we have heard you. You've spoken very clearly. The message is home.
The DP further assured Gen Zs that the government has laid out mechanisms that will see their issues addressed.
Now that you have been heard, don't allow these criminals an opportunity to take advantage of what you had started in good faith with a message to the country, infiltrate and hijack and bring chaos to our beautiful country.
Other leaders present, including Senate Deputy Speaker Kathuri Murungi, also addressed the hot issue of MPs, senators and senior government officials having their salaries increased by SRC, saying they will not accept. Even as leaders continue to pile pressure on Gen Zs to end their anti-government demos, there still exists uncertainty as to whether the youthful generation will yield, despite goons infiltrating their peaceful mission. Electin Odera, K24 TV.
That report by Electin Odera brings us to a break on New Dawn. When we come back, a look at what's making headlines on the dailies on this Thursday, the 4th of July. But also a reminder at the top of the hour, we focus on Kenya's economy with no easy solutions for the Kenya Kwanza government amid sustained pressure by the Gen Z protesters to cut down Kenya's expenditure. Let's take a look at that conversation. The hashtag is New Dawn. What are your thoughts? Speak to us on X at K24 TV. Do stay with us.